For the ones standing guard, for the eagle-eyed, for the knights in shining armor, and for all those who support them. We are Grainger, your experienced safety partner, offering supplies and solutions for every industry, committed to helping keep your facilities safe and your people safer. Call, clickgrainger.com/safety, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
I used to think time was my enemy. My future wasn't looking good. So worried about the things I couldn't see. I couldn't see the things I could. I was aging fearfully, worrying my life away, when all along I should have been thankful for every day. Finally made a friend of time. Now you could say that I'm aging gratefully. Aging gratefully.
Broadcasting from the rolling hills of the beautiful Tennessee Valley, from the foothills of the Great Smoky Mountains, across this amazing nation and spanning the universe, you're listening to Aging Gratefully. I'm your host, gerontologist Holly Kelly, bringing you exceptional guests and novel information to ensure you age great, live full, and embrace each extraordinary day for the incredible gift it is. Welcome, everyone, to the Aging Gratefully Show. We broadcast every Friday on the CTR network at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Welcome to Aging Gratefully, most amazing listeners around the world. So happy you're joining the show today. Welcome, everyone. I hope wherever you are that you are doing wonderful, feeling wonderful, and I hope you are healthy and happy, whatever you are doing right now. And obviously, you're listening to this show. I'd like you to compliment that with a smile. Yep, I know it can sound like a silly ritual. We do this on the show here, but there's actually something to it. So many of you say this show makes you feel better, and I do appreciate that. We begin the show with a smile, and I do that for a reason, by the way. Science has proven the simple act of smiling elevates your mood, decreases stress, can increase longevity, and you know what else? It can even boost your immunity. We certainly can use all of that. So let's get that smiling spandemic going, the only demic we're on board with. I'm smiling, and hopefully you're smiling, and we're getting those neuropeptides, feel-good, dopamine, serotonin, happy hormones working their magic. Sometimes when you're not feeling your best, smiling can help you along, but most of all, it just can't hurt. So wear a smile and share a smile, and by the way, you look beautiful when you do, Aging Rebels. Life's not always a day at the beach. Sometimes it's okay. Let's just say it's easy to get caught up in life's riptide. Undertow can carry you away if you're not careful. Some people claim they are going along and everything is fine, and then suddenly it's like out of nowhere, the lens of life shifts. Happy to Yucksville. Some people call this a normal transition of aging, but there's nothing normal about grim perspectives. In the 1960s, the term midlife crisis made its debut into vocabulary. It began to get some spotlight attention more in the 80s. We know the term. Some people may have even experienced it. Citing a portion of an article by WebMD, Midlife Crisis, Transition or Depression? What do you do when a midlife crisis turns into depression? By Kathleen Doheny, reviewed by Brunilda Nazario, MD, on November 11, 2009 from the WebMD archives. What's a midlife crisis? It's the stuff of jokes and stereotypes, the time in life when you do outrageous, impractical things like quit a job, impulsively buy a red sports car, or dump your spouse. For years, midlife crisis conjured those images. But these days, the old midlife crisis is more likely to be called a midlife transition, and it's not all bad. The term crisis often doesn't fit, mental health experts say, because while it can be accompanied by serious depression, it can also mark a period of tremendous growth. The trick, of course, is to realize when the transition is developing into depression so you can get help. Midlife crisis, his versus hers. Men and women are equally likely to experience a transition or crisis, Jones says, but it looks different in both genders, he says. The stereotype is a man buys a red sports car, he says. That's not always the case, of course, but Jones says men do seem more intent on wanting to prove something. Men might gauge their worth by their job performance, he says. They may want to look successful, for instance, even though their achievements don't measure up as they had hoped. Women often get validity through relationships, he says, and that's true even if they've had a lifelong career. So at midlife, they are likely to evaluate their performance as a wife, mother, or both. The midlife crisis as a normal stage in life. The midlife transition is looked on more and more as a normal part of life. Yale psychologist Daniel Levinson proposed in his well-regarded theory of adult development that all adults go through a series of stages. At the center of his theory is the life structure, which is described as the underlying pattern of a person's life at any particular time. For many people, the life structure involves mainly family and work, but it can also include religion and economic status, for instance. According to his theory, the midlife transition is simply another normal transition to another stage of life, and midlife people often reevaluate their priorities and goals, Jones finds. Women feeling they have raised their children may want to go back to school, even if they have been in the workforce, reasoning they can now do whatever they wish work-wise. This was only an expert of this WebMD article, and there's more to this. And of course, understanding some people experience depths of midlife crisis where depression comes extremely serious. But I believe, with all things in life, we do have phases. I like that the authors looked at this as often more a normal transition than a crisis, because in life we are ever transitioning, blossoming into the next phase of becoming. In fact, we did this many times in our youth, reevaluated our next as we evolved from teen to young adult. Was that a youth life crisis? No, it was a normal crossroad where we as young adults were about to leave all things familiar, in most cases our parents' home. We had graduated high school, we were considering our next big life embarking, if you will, and leaving our womb of comfort to explore and become the young adult we dreamed of, transitioning, much like the caterpillar emerging from the cocoon as a butterfly. Perhaps midlife is called a crisis because it too is a bit like that caterpillar. Maybe it's a little more work than those transitions of our youth. Maybe, just maybe, we see things through a lens of wisdom only found by looking at life in reverse, and perhaps we gained depth of clarity, more profound appreciations. So when midlife crossroads and chaos show up, just like that caterpillar stops eating, we too can go on some sort of hiatus, a strike, giving up some normal. The caterpillar hangs upside down from a twig, by the way, akin to our life that can feel upside down. Oh, the parallels, us and this caterpillar. And then this incredible caterpillar begins to spin and spin, as we probably feel the same, our life a whirl. But the caterpillar is spinning itself a silky cocoon, or it molts into a shiny chrysalis. Once inside, the caterpillar radically transforms its body, eventually emerging as a butterfly or moth. And with all of our spinning, hanging upside down, facing the change, challenge, and chaos, perhaps we too transform and come out of the other side, beautifully accepting the newfound and bounteousness, what isness of life before us, radically renovated ourselves of the mind, body, and spirit, appreciating all the previous stages and looking forward now to the promise of this new chapter complements of this midlife, youth life, later life, latter life, life awakening with a fresh new lens we're so lucky to be in, upside down, enduring a pandemic even, all the spinning, the good, the bad, the crisis, the change, metamorphosis, who we are, what we be, how you be, our glorious gift bestowed, lifeness. With that, our Aging Gratefully alphabet soup for the psyche this week is a quote by Maya Angelou. We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty. And so it is probably with us as well. And our show dedication this week is to the word, an adjective, adaptable. And it means to adjust to new conditions. Something we've all learned to do this year, undeniably so, and something that is the superpower of growing older. You, my aging rebels, are unbelievably adaptable and resilient and amazing. Today's guest is a wonderful one to continue with this topic. In fact, she wrote the book that really speaks to the heart of it. A Midlife, No Crisis, an audacious guide to embracing 50 and beyond. Age activist, Martha Beck Institute life certified coach, Lisa Levine, and health coach reached a turning point when she turned 50. She spent years working her dream job in the music video department at a major record label, then ran the video division of an LA production company, and later started a business in Seattle as an agent for directors and their companies. But she always had a sneaking suspicion that something else was calling her name. Getting through a diagnosis of Graves' disease, a thyroid autoimmune condition, infertility, she first became a mom through IVF, and raising a daughter with Hashimoto's disease sparked a passion with Levine to use food for healing. This was audacious for her because it required her to step out of her comfort zone and learn to enjoy veggies beyond carrot sticks. And that bold move turned her midlife meaning of life crisis, when she was tired of her career, into taking a leap of faith into the coaching world. Becoming a coach met her vociferous craving for more meaning in her life, and she had found what she can bring to the table, literally and metaphorically. Today, Levine shares tools to help people understand and move beyond their fears, shift their perspectives, and first and foremost, how to truly pay attention to what they are thinking, feeling, and doing to get unstuck and move towards their lives that they truly want to be living, even if they don't know yet what that looks like. In her new book, Midlife, No Crisis, an audacious guide to embracing 50 and beyond, she empowers women to do something different when what they're doing is no longer working. The secret to owning this next chapter of your life, finding the audacious in and around you. It's an incredible book, and you can connect with Lisa. I invite you to do so by visiting her at www.audaciouswellness.com. It is with incredible pleasure to welcome you, Lisa Levine, to the Aging Gratefully show. So excited to have you on this show. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Holly. Thanks for that lovely introduction. I'm really happy to be here with you.
Oh my goodness. So I love the title of your book. Oh my goodness. Midlife, No Crisis. I mean, you are like having no part of this. And so putting the brakes on it and audaciously, I love that you chose that word.
Well, you know, audacious is really defined as taking bold risks. And in my opinion, that can look different for everybody, but it's about stepping out of your comfort zone and doing something that might feel a little unusual, a little audacious. And really, it can mean any different things to everybody. And for me, it felt audacious to start a coaching practice. You know, honestly, if I go back, you mentioned in my bio about eating vegetables beyond carrot sticks. I mean, I grew up on the East Coast in the 1970s in a family that never ate fresh vegetables. I didn't even taste real, like fresh broccoli or asparagus till I was in my 20s. So moving to the West Coast and then becoming a health coach and learning how to cook with all kinds of vegetables, that was hugely audacious for me. And yet now it's something that just still feels so rewarding. So that's I want women and men too. I want people to be able to channel their inner audacity, their inner audacious, and let it lead them a little bit.
Yes, that was quite a reach because I love your photographs of you with all of these vegetables, vibrant colored vegetables. Because when you think about your youth, that wasn't actually part of your young life. You didn't have that kind of that wasn't part of your meals and things like that.
Not at all. It was all Jolly Green Giant or nothing. I mean, it was Hungry Man TV dinners. It was my mother cooking for her husband, for my father, who didn't like vegetables, so we just didn't have them. She was it was the 60s and 70s. We had a lot of meat and potatoes and pasta and cheese, and it was all very delicious, but I didn't know that there was a wide world beyond that. And when I moved out to the West Coast, I was exposed to it, and I feel like I changed my palate. I changed it all, and I found it to be, I still find it sometimes to be interesting and empowering. I really want to, it's like a gospel. I just want to share it with everyone. Please add more. It's one of the ways I think that I encourage people to age audaciously. One of my top ways is to crowd more vegetables into your diet, because you can't have too many.
And your message is beyond the palate. Your message is to step out of your comfort zone. And you really did. And to be bold and to find your bold. And we say all the time on the show, bold, not old. And yet you really, I love that you say that audacious is different for everybody and that each person gets to define that in their own way. I am so interested to know what inspired you to even get to the point of writing the book. How did that happen?
That is a really good question. The book was born from my blog. So I do have a blog, and a lot of these things were in one form or another started there. And it was because when I was turning 50, actually really when I was turning 48, 49, I started to have what felt like a crisis to me, because all of a sudden I had a job that I enjoyed. I was working with a production company, repping them and, getting them work. I had a life on paper that was pretty amazing, that I felt like I really helped create for myself. I had a really wonderful husband, and I had these two fantastic kids that, that I had to, as you mentioned, I went through in vitro to get to create this family. And so I had nothing to feel unsettled about in my head. So there was some guilt about it, but I would go to work and I would sit, they would order in these lunches, and there were about 12 or 15 of us in the company, and we would sit at this table and eat together. And it was one of the things that I loved about it, but I started to notice that suddenly I was like, I don't really care what these folks are talking about. Like, a lot of them were younger than I was, and they were talking about, what equipment are we going to shoot this on? And let's talk about this movie or that movie. And I was like, I want to talk about the universe. I want to talk about God. I want to talk about deeper. I want more. I want more. And so I started to feel unsettled. And it led me to, I had been flirting with Martha Beck's program for a while. She wrote several books, including one that I loved called Expecting Adam. And it was just so full of magic. It was, I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Beck, but she's really quite wonderful. And anyway, I read these books, and then a couple years later, I think I was in a dentist's office, and I picked up an Oprah magazine and started reading an article and loved it. And at the end, noticed it was written by Martha Beck, and she said, Martha Beck is a life coach. And I thought, okay, I don't know what that is, but I need to find out, because I love her and I love everything she says. So that was kind of the beginning of a flirtation with her program. And ultimately, I decided to go for it. And it was all at once the most wonderful and the most harrowing thing I've ever done, because once you start to embark on this personal growth and you really want to start to walk your talk, it kind of plunged me deeper into what felt like was a crisis. And it felt like my analogy was that I somehow felt like I was on a life raft in the fog with no oars, that I pushed off from where I was, and I knew that there was land ahead of me, but I couldn't see it, and I had to trust. I just had to trust. And by the time I reached the other side, I turned 50, and I felt more empowered and alive than I ever have. And I love that you were just talking about the butterfly and the caterpillar, because that is a really, it's like a cornerstone metaphor that we use in that coaching program. And, I never thought about the caterpillar being upside down, but what I do realize that I didn't know then is that when the caterpillar finishes its cocoon, it melts down into, kind of a pile of DNA goop. And
Yeah,
if you
it
try to
does.
open, I didn't
Yes.
know that until it was
Hmm.
fascinating. And if you open up the top of the cocoon, the caterpillar will never. I mean, the butterfly will never emerge. And if the butterfly is trying to get out of its cocoon, and you go, oh, I'm just gonna, help it. I'll blow on its wings to help dry them off, or then it will not have the same lifespan. It has to melt down, reform, and climb out of the cocoon all on its own. And so do we, to a degree. And so what I was having was, as you were saying, it's like transitions. It was a meltdown, but all the information was there. I just needed to reform it and become the butterfly. And we can go through that kind of transformation repeatedly in different areas of our life throughout our life cycle. But for me, it really happened profoundly right around 48. But when I look back, it really, again, it wasn't a crisis. Although it felt intense, it absolutely was an empowering transformation. And I'm so grateful to it. And so now when I work with clients, mostly women who are in a similar space, having gone through it myself, it's really my pleasure to help guide them to it. So they don't have to go through life coach training. They can work with me, and I can help them figure out how to melt down and how to reform, really, and what is needed to do that, because it's really quite a remarkable time in our lives.
Yes, and there's so many people that have this unsettling of the soul, and yet they don't know what it is. They may feel like there's something wrong with them. There's people that sit among their colleagues or their peers and others, and they feel like, gosh, why am I not sharing similar interests? Why do I not have a sense of connectedness or belonging? And maybe it's important that we take note of those things and say, perhaps there's a beckoning in another direction. It's so important that I'm so happy that you shared that, because you had the wherewithal and the insight to actually question and ask yourself the questions. And you almost had a pull to say, what is my next, and why am I feeling this way? It led you on this path, and you were bold enough and brave enough to be, as you explained, on that raft out there in the fog with no oars, and trust. And look what happened. It's so incredible. The comfort zone and leaving it can feel so vulnerable. And what would you say to somebody that's so scared of that?
Oh my goodness, I would say, sweetheart, it's going to be okay. I promise, and it will. I mean, I would really offer so much compassion and understanding and reassurance. And also, I would show evidence that this is a really normal thing. Not everybody has an intense feeling of crisis or transformation. For some people, it's simpler, or it's more focused directly on one thing, like a career or a relationship. But it really, everyone is different. And so I would mostly just reassure them and help them figure out straight away how so much of what feels like a crisis is actually in our minds. It's what we're thinking, and empowering us to check our attitudes, to change our thinking. It's something that typically doesn't occur to us that we can. I mean, we think, I don't know, like 60 or 80,000 thoughts a day, and we're not even aware of so many of these biases we have about aging. It's particularly hard for women because we live in this, or at least that's been my experience. It's, we live in this youth-focused culture, and so suddenly, when you're as women, as we age, as menopause happens, which is or perimenopause, it's a whole other transformation that's happening in our bodies. So it can really feel like, oh my gosh, everything is changing. I don't know what I feel completely unsettled. So it's kind of a combination of supporting those physical changes and also really supporting and recognizing where your thinking is getting you stuck, and learning that you don't have to believe everything you think.
Oh my goodness. So the Aging Gratefully show is so about getting listeners unstuckified. Totally love that. On the other side of break, we want to talk about, you have so much we want to unpack. So on the other side of break, I want to talk about the value of a stop doing list, the 5 ways to live audaciously. There's a lot we want to do. Empowered versus disenfranchised. So if we could do that on the other side of break, we want to definitely get to it. If you're willing to. Okay. Don't go anywhere because this fantastic conversation will continue. Today, we're so grateful to be with Lisa Levine talking all things midlife, no crisis in her book, just that, an audacious guide to embracing 50 and beyond. You can learn more about her by visiting her at www.audaciouswellness.com. By the way, I know you love our show's amazing theme song for new listeners. That's Jim Beloff's Aging Gratefully, and you can find it on iTunes and Amazon Music. And just get the entire album. It's in Dreams I Left in Pockets. You'll like all the songs. My favorite's always going to be Aging Gratefully, of course, but you will just love that. Special thanks to you, awesome aging rebels tuning in from around the world. Oh my goodness, so many places. You are just everywhere around the world. Thank you for tuning in and sharing the show like you have. And thank you so much for allowing us to be recognized 3 years running, 19, 20, 21, a top show on aging on the entire planet. It is you, the amazing listeners, and wonderful guests like today that have allowed that to happen. We cherish you. You rock, you role model, and I'm grateful for each of you. I'm your host, gerontologist Holly Kelly, and we'll be right back.
Hello, my name is J. Scott McMillan, and I am the author of Be the Hero of Your Life. And today I was a guest on the Aging Gracefully podcast with Holly Kelly, and I got to tell you, it was one of the best experiences that I've had as a guest, and I do a lot of these different podcasts. I love the way that Holly engages with her listeners. They brings them like into her house, if you will. And she involves the guest to be part of that show and to connect with her listeners like she does. And I found that very warming and wonderful. And I could feel the connection to her guests just by how she cultivated that. Also is very insightful into the aging process and can connect that to many, many topics. Including, mine of the hero's journey. And when Holly sits down to have a guest on the show, she writes this complete article that introduces her concepts along with the guest. And it's very insightful, very wonderful, makes the guest on her show feel like they're really connected to her content and to her listeners. So I've had just a wonderful time. So thank you. And you can connect with me at www.jscottmcmillan.com. That's letter J, MACMILLAN.com.
Have you been thinking about sprucing up your yard this spring but not sure where to start? Look for Proven Winners shrubs at your local garden center. They're the ones in the white containers. Evergreens, roses, hydrangeas, and more, all trialed and tested to ensure your success. Whether you're planting for the first time or the 31st, you can count on the plants in the white containers to make you look like a pro. Proven Winners Color Choice Shrubs.
The Ladder Life Planning Institute is the ultimate guidance for life's inevitable destiny and your path to passionate aging and inspirational advanced care planning. LLPI offers tools that educate, inspire, and enlighten. Live vibrantly, plan thoughtfully, age dynamically. Visit LLPI for business and individual consulting services. Professional and keynote speaking, books, workshops, education, webinars, and resources. LLPI is here to transform your ladder life living today. Visit them at ladderlifeplanninginstitute.com. Live extraordinary, age dynamically. Visit ladderlifeplanninginstitute.com.
Hi, I'm Theo Alfero, founder and director of Wolf Connection in California and author of The Wolf Connection, What Wolf Can Teach Us About Being Human. In Holly's show is absolutely incredible. It's hands down one of the best interviews I've ever done. Her energy, her enthusiasm, her passion for people, for nature, for animals is heartwarming. So I'm very grateful and honored to be one of her guests.
Thank you so much, best listeners in the world. I am an authority on this matter. I tell you that every week, as you know, I just want to remind you that you are the best listeners in the world, according to me. Welcome back to Aging Gratefully. I'm your host, gerontologist Holly Kelly, here today with Lisa Levine, who promotes creating new habits and healthy lifestyle changes and positive mindsets, and reframing how we think about growing older and, of course, midlife no crisis. I know you, my awesome aging rebels, are all about that. So happy to have her with us today. And of course, I did tell you that, well, I have to remind you that, my goodness, we are 200 and something episodes in. I can't keep track, but they're available wherever you want them, however you want them, on the go, however you listen, your Android and Apple devices, your Samsung and Amazon smart TVs. And just thank you so much for all the different ways that you're listening. And thank you for the show reviews. Oh my goodness. Really appreciate it. This week's listener appreciation shout out is to who left this review. Amazing, energy, inspiring. I know who left this review because they left their name. So I'll read this to you. Amazing, energy, inspiring guys. Listen, I was recently a guest on this amazing podcast and was blessed out of this world. As a speaker, preacher, I'm used to showing up to inspire others and assume my interview conversations, as Holly calls them, would be no different, but it was. I was totally inspired from the moment Holly started her introduction monologue, and the ride did not end until hours after ending our time together. What a phenomenal individual Holly is. Thank you. And I highly recommend this show to anyone looking for a reason to smile. We do that here, and feel better about themselves and their lives. Travell C.W. Lynch, self-worth specialist and author. He was amazing. You'll love that show. I invite you to look up the show with Travell C.W. Lynch, an amazing show. So promo code Amazing Podcast, $10 off my book at hollykelly.com. And you can get that in the continental U.S. and check out with $10 off my book until 7/31. Thank you. Thank you so much, Travell C.W. Lynch, for that. That's so kind. And all of you that leave these amazing reviews. You rock. So appreciate our guest today, who also rocks, and you can visit her at www.audaciouswellness.com. She does so much great work in so many areas, including sharing tools to help people understand and move beyond their fears. That's so important, by the way, and shift their perspectives. And first and foremost, how to truly pay attention to what they are thinking, feeling, and doing to get unstuck. We're Unstuckified experts here on the Aging Gratefully show, and move towards the lives they truly want to be living, even if they don't know what that looks like yet. By the way, very common. A lot of times we have no idea. And so the hard part is, the important part is identifying that. And once you've identified that, then you get to figure it out. And that's a lot of fun, by the way. So her book is Midlife No Crisis, an audacious guide to embracing 50 and beyond. So I would look at not knowing is not a big deal, because it is fun figuring it out, isn't it?
So much fun. And I have to say, it is really common for women especially, and particularly women who have been staying home raising their kids, but even women who have been out in the work world. You know, when I will ask a client, like, what do you want? Like, what would you, and they'll say, I'm not sure, because we're so used to putting everyone's needs in front of our own that we don't even pay attention to those inner, I like to call them like inner glimmerings, or yes, this feelings, the tugs, and we tamp them down because we're so outwardly focused on making sure everyone is okay. We're caregivers, we're carers, and so it can be so much fun to start tuning into those yes, this moments, to start to figure out, gosh, what is the pull? What direction am I being pulled in? How can I serve? What is my purpose beyond being a mother, or beyond being whatever? Like, who else can I serve? How can I be of service?
Yeah, no shame in that at all, but definitely just tons of excitement. I mean, just you can go in any direction with that. So no shame at all, but just the world is yours. So I want to talk 100%. About, yes, the value of the stop doing list is pretty intriguing to me. So could you address that?
Yeah, I talk about this in the book. So it's another way to sort of generate space to allow new ideas and habits to take root. So because, as I said, women have traditionally been taught to put everyone's needs in front of ours, you know, we don't we do that. So for instance, something I did, I think I even wrote this in the book. I was doing something, I was working, and my daughter was at school, and she called me and said, I forgot my favorite shorts she was a freshman. Please, can you mail them to me? I need them right away. There's an event. And I put down what I was doing, and I ran upstairs to find them. And I thought, okay, I do not have to drop what I'm doing to UPS Lily's favorite pair of shorts to her at college. Like, it's okay. I don't have to answer every little work-related text message the minute it dings on my phone. I can stop. I can be a responsible and caring adult and mother without responding to everyone else's whims at the drop of a hat. So in this case, it was deciding to stop being a people pleaser. It doesn't mean that other people couldn't be given priority when the situation calls for it, like an illness or a crisis or real emergency. But what it does mean is that me, we are allowed to start making ourselves and our time a priority, seriously. And then other things that might make your stop doing list would be, stop complaining all the time. Like, stop, notice that you're complaining, stop uselessly complaining, or stop using the word can't. Because, I teach this to my clients. Pretty much everything in the world is a choice of some kind or another. We don't necessarily, we don't have to pay taxes, but we choose to do it because we don't want to get in trouble. We don't have to. When you use the word can't, it takes it out of you. So recognizing when you're watching your language, when you're using the word can't or shouldn't or have to. So watching your language is a big one. Endlessly pursuing perfection is another one. We can stop doing it, okay? Because we're never going to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. And it's exhausting trying to follow that perfectionism. And or stop doing things that drain our energy, like being on social media all the time, or sometimes it can be playing Words with Friends on your phone, whatever it is. There are lots of things, and again, everyone's different here, but things that you want to, that it is draining you of your energy and of your audacity, and so you can choose to stop doing that and have a list.
I call that preserve the sanctuary of self.
I like it. Yeah.
All of those things, and they're boundaries that I feel need to be adhered. And once you do that, it becomes easier because all of those things can whittle away at the sanctuary of self.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. So the 5 ways to live audaciously in your 50s and beyond. Yes.
So this is a list that I have that I kind of keep. And the first way is to create a new relationship with stress, because stress isn't going anywhere. We're not going to stop being stressed, but we can create a new relationship with stress. And whatever it takes to do that, whether it's, meditation is a great way, but I have so many people that say to me, I can't meditate, I can't sit still, I stink at meditating. I can coach them around that, but I could also say, start with just a pausing practice instead of a meditation practice. And literally, you can set a timer. You can create a habit where whenever you go sit in your car, where you get in your car before you turn it on, you pause and take 3 deep breaths and check in with yourself. Feel your feet on the floor or, on the rug or whatever, and just reconnect to you. And that alone can be hugely calming. But create a new relationship with stress, whatever that entails. Another one is which I mentioned earlier, which is crowding more vegetables into your diet, because it's the vegetables that are full of antioxidants and polyphenols and so many things that are going to help our bodies age audaciously. And we definitely want to, it's a mind-body connection. And we want to empower both of those parts. So creating more vegetables into your diet, crowding more vegetables into your diet. And there's so many ways to do that. One way that I like to recommend is every time you go to the grocery store, find a new vegetable, one you don't typically eat, and go home and find a recipe and, just like start rotating new things in, because we always get so stuck on the stuff that we know we like to eat. And that's great, but try to add in some new ones. The next one is make sleep a top priority. And I'm sure you know this. I mean, there's an insomnia epidemic right now for so many reasons. And when women are dealing with perimenopause, insomnia can pop up as well. So I almost think that should be number one when I think about it, because if you're not sleeping well, nothing else really matters. I mean, everything is ridiculous if you're not sleeping. You're not showing up as your best self. So what that means by saying make sleep a top priority, because I'm sure everyone's like, yeah, I want to sleep, but I can't, and I don't know what to do. So I would absolutely recommend, by making that a priority, get help if you need it, and to start to pay attention. Like, okay, there are really simple steps just about for sleep hygiene that you can Google. I actually have a blog post about it, which I can send you a link to, because so many people are dealing with this. But there are lots of things that you can try, but making that number one priority. The next one is to hydrate and move. Again, this is a body one. Sometimes we don't even know we're dehydrated until we're thirsty. Drinking enough water as we age is so, I cannot stress the importance of that. Buy yourself a new water bottle. There are apps to remind you to drink your water. I believe it's something like 8 ounces per. I can't remember the actual math of it. But I think I try to drink at least 64 ounces, and I think that's a pretty good baseline. So that, and moving your body. I mean, that's not news to anybody that exercise is important. We all know that. But I think your guest, was it last time, it talked about telomeres. About. Exercise is such an important part about detoxing and getting those cells moving. It's a cornerstone of aging audaciously. And the last one is checking your attitude, because noticing how you're feeling about something. If you're always feeling rather judgmental or pretty pissed off or very resentful, it's time to have an attitude check. And it's time to start to employ curiosity instead of whatever you're doing. Well, why am I feeling that? Why is that happening? What can I do instead? Check your attitude. Attitude is another huge cornerstone of aging audaciously. So those are really the 5.
Yes, wonderful, and I love every one of those. So as I think I wrote these down: de-stress or create a new relationship with yourself, cram veggies into your diet. And I love what you said, because if you use the same ones over and over, you actually, it kind of backfires on you because you get tired of them. I know my mom, we were eating Brussels sprouts. The Brussels sprout thing was like, we were eating them every way you could. And she's like, I don't like Brussels sprouts anymore, because she overate them. Make sleep a top priority, hydrate and move, and attitude. Did I get those right?
You did. Actually, I just realized, I have an opt-in on my website. Maybe I can send you a link for this so you can print this out. It's pretty easy. It's and there's a couple of, it goes into a little more detail. But yes, those are the 5. And with vegetables, honestly, I've never met a vegetable that didn't taste better without roasting it, except for maybe lettuce. I mean, like, honestly, if you cut up some radishes and some celery root and toss them in olive oil and salt and pepper and paprika and roast them in the oven at 400 for 30 minutes, they're delicious.
I totally agree.
And you can feel very smug and good about yourself because you just crowded more vegetables in.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great advice. As far as attitude, definitely it's so important. And I love how you're asking listeners to check themselves at the door with the complaining and the can't, because those things can insidiously work their way into our lives and become a habit unbeknownst and serendipitously. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. So, wow. Okay. The 3 C's.
Another thing I want to say to you, I want to say that it's really important that we know part of aging audaciously is to decide to stop buying into stories with descriptors like over the hill or long in the tooth, or even like too much mutton dressed as lamb or whatever. Those are stories that try to disempower us. And we don't have to buy into them. We don't have to believe them. We can, because now that I've learned that aging, that for women when they hit their 50s, it is sometimes the best time in their lives, not just me, but so many people. I think that that's a bunch of baloney. And so noticing when you're believing those stories is can be hugely empowering as well. Just going, says who? Says who? Says who too much mutton dressed as lamb? I love this. When I wear this, it makes me feel good. So I'm going to wear it because I want to feel good. I'm not going to buy into those stories anymore. I think that is really important.
Age is propaganda, and definitely, we are a voice against that. And the thing is a lot of times people don't realize that not only is society using it, but we can be the worst users of it against ourselves. So we do want listeners to take note, because not only do you often accidentally, unbeknownst, use it on yourself, but you become a voice for your grandchildren saying, is grandma old? Oh my goodness, do I need to be worried because of the things she says in jest, but they become a voice against that aging is a negative thing. And so I'm so glad that you said that, and so true.
1,000%. And you know what else? Another story that this is just a personal pet peeve of mine, but it's aging gracefully. Because what does that even mean? Like, to me, what that feels like is aging gracefully feels like kind of be quiet. Like, okay, be a good girl and just don't bother us with your stuff. Like, that's why I'm so attached to aging audaciously. Because gracefully somehow, I mean, I love, I'm a fan of grace, but I just, in the way that it's said, typically, is aging gracefully, it's kind of about don't make a fuss. And I think we should
mind your manners.
Yes. And there's nothing to do with that. It's like, age audaciously, kick up your heels, create a ruckus.
Well, we are aging gratefully, which means we are aging great in full and full, of course, in the spirit of gratitude. And we are full throttle, bucket list living. And
Awesome.
We made our own word, and we're living life by design, not by default, here on the Aging Gratefully show. So we definitely, in fact, we made our own word because we are doing it our own way. Much like you. So you are a perfect guest for the show, because we definitely channel so much of what you're doing. So these shows go so quickly. I want to ask you, why feeling old is inflammation in your body and your mind? I know that some of that may go back to diet, but can you touch on that quickly?
Yes. So basically, in your mind, inflammation in your mind is really what I like to call stinking thinking. And it's kind of what we've been talking about, having the power to change how you're thinking, because so much of a midlife quote unquote crisis or feeling old in a negative way is in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about like, oh, I'm too old to do that, or I'll never be able to do this. Everyone has a different flavor of that. So inflammatory thinking is AKA stinking thinking, which is the thoughts that keep you stuck. And then, yes, inflammation in your body is diet related and stress related, and creating that new relationship with stress, and eating and drinking, moving your body, and eating a more healthful diet. Yes, crowd more vegetables in. And, it's not a cornerstone, although it probably should be, but really focusing on eliminating processed foods and refined sugar.
Oh, so bad. Yes.
I mean,
and hard to do, by the
way,
because a lot of people live on their own, and it's hard to be motivated to cook for one. When the kids leave, it's hard to be motivated to cook for two. Those big family dinners were fun and festive. So it's important that you raise that point.
It's huge. That is the definition of chronic and silent inflammation, is eating. Those foods are inflammers. And, it's hard to feel audacious when your bones ache, when your body is uncomfortable. It's like what's on your plate is going to give you the energy to show up in the things that feed your soul. So it's really, it's primary food and secondary food is what I learned as a health coach. Primary food are the foods that feed your life. It's your relationships, your hobbies, your movement, your spirituality. All of those things are your primary foods. Your secondary food is the food that's on your plate, and they work together. Because if for instance, if you're in a job that feels like a soul sucking, or a relationship that really needs some attention, you're not going to necessarily feel like showing up. You're not going to pay as much attention to what you eat necessarily. Those are the times where we sit on the couch and we are like, what, forget it, I'm just going to eat crackers for dinner. I don't care. And because you're feeling unmotivated. And at the same time, when you eat crackers for dinner, or you eat, a lot of frozen foods or processed foods, then you don't have the energy to show up for the things that you love. So they work together.
Very much so. So let's see. One final thing before I ask you the last question of the show. Do you have anything else to add to feeling empowered versus disenfranchised?
Yeah, as far as feeling empowered versus disenfranchised, I hate to keep coming back to it, but it really is in how we think. So if you're doing something where you feel disenfranchised, and I know that as we age, it's really easy to feel that way because ageism is real. It's a real thing. So noticing what the stories are that you're telling yourself about it, because we can't control what other people think. We can only control what we think and how we show up in a situation. So you're not going to be necessarily to be able to change stuff that's happening outside of you. You can change the things that are happening inside of you. And while that's not necessarily easy to do that when you've been thinking thoughts or a cluster of thoughts or a cultural myth for so long, but it is possible. Honestly, getting a coach is a great way to help with that. But it is, it's going to be, how can you feel empowered in your own life? Like, how can you take that back for you and stop focusing on the big, the bigger picture, like trying to change a system, because it's going to be a little bit like bashing your head against the wall, and recognizing that those stories are not real.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So it's been a wonderful hour with you that's gone so quickly, and we could have two with you. But we definitely, before we end the show, want to know how you age gratefully.
Yeah. So one of my favorite quotes that I heard Oprah Winfrey say one time was, how do you have the life you want? How do you get the life you want? And the answer is by being awake in the life you're in. So my tip the way that I age gratefully is by remembering to pay attention to how I'm feeling, to all the abundance I have in my life, to be grateful for it, to pay attention to what's going on, and to say, how am I feeling right now? How do I want to feel? What do I need to do to move the needle? Because I have the power.
I love that. And the asking of questions is so important so that we can check in with ourselves. That's so wonderful. Thank you so much for the incredible work that you are doing. I invite listeners to visit your website. There's a lot there waiting for you, including many of the things that you mentioned, www.audaciouswellness.com, your book, Midlife No Crisis. Just thank you so much, Lisa Levine, for the incredible gems that you're bringing to the world and helping people navigate living audaciously in their 50s and beyond.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure. You've been listening to Aging Gratefully, and I'm your host, gerontologist Holly Kelly. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you've enjoyed our message, I invite you to subscribe and share it with others. May you remember to never act your age, and that age is just a number. And may you enjoy and embrace the coming week in the spirit of gratitude. Until we meet again, here's to living your best life now.
I used to think time was my enemy. My future wasn't looking good. So worried about the things I couldn't see. I couldn't see the things I could. I was aging fearfully, worrying my life away, when all along I should have been thankful for every day. Finally made a friend of time. Now you could say that I'm aging gratefully. Aging gratefully.
Has it been a while since you flipped that thermostat from heat to cool? Turn to the experts at Griffith Energy Services before you do for an $88 AC start and check to make sure your AC is in tip-top shape. Griffith specializes in Carrier, but services all brands. Visit GriffithEnergyServices.com today. Your local Carrier expert. That's GriffithEnergyServices.com. License number MD-HVACR01-2278.
Griffith Energy Services. Doggone dependable.
People say treat yourself like you need a reason, but McDonald's treats are perfect for every day. Like bold McCafe iced coffee. Get any size for $1.69. Or pick up any size sweet tea for $1. The largest served in an insulated cup that keeps your tea cold. Feeling a little extra something something? Try the classic bakery sweets like an apple fritter. With so many ways to treat yourself, you don't need an excuse. Just come back tomorrow. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Prices and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal.